Well, good morning world. Hope this day finds you well and cracking on with whatever it is you enjoy doing in life. As the thing suggested, there's a little bit more to this video than just the cost of a knife. There's a reason behind it. But what I'm going to do is, to start with, I've just made a couple of notes, so I'll be looking down a little bit. But it's just looking at the cost of making a knife, and there is a reason behind this. So please bear with me. It's a short vid, short clip. But generally speaking, when you're looking at making a knife, obviously the more you do of anything, the cheaper things get because you can buy in bulk. So it does get cheaper, and I've put a couple of examples. But when it comes to making a knife, for me, this is the sort of things I'm looking at. This is very general and very quick, so please bear with me. Steel. Now I pay around $20 for a bar of steel. That's a 500mm bar of steel. 500mm long, various thicknesses and widths. But $20 is a ballpark, and it also varies on exchange rate, the thickness of the steel, the width of the steel, and things like that. But a ballpark, that'll be okay. To give you an example, that's the price to anybody. I can't buy that in big enough bulk to get discount for that. That's basically what it costs. However, you imagine a big company making thousands a day, they're probably paying $1 a bar. Something, whatever, next to nothing. Which is why you often get particular companies will work in a particular steel for virtually every knife. It might not be ideal, but it massively keeps costs down, and depending on the market they're going for, that's the sort of things they're looking at. Then you've got things like the wood for the handles. Now, I've shown you on a number of occasions the process and how many months and months and months it takes me to make my own scales. Whether that's just from dried timbers, such as the heavier timbers, Purairis, Pahutakowas, oaks and things like that, or whether I go all the hog and stabilise them. Then obviously you've got the stabilising equipment and the stabilising resin. So it's not just a piece of wood. I get a lot of my wood for free. I also buy in some bits of wood because some of it's quite difficult to get hold of. Things like swamp. I've got some 3,000-year-old swamp ratter. Beautiful, amazing piece of wood. But I've got to pay for those. They're not very expensive. I tend to buy a big box full and then go through them and pick the best bits out. And even that a big tub, but that does a lot. But it's another odd cost. Then on the knife, the things that you do see, things like the liners and the scales, and the pins and the lanyard tubes. Mosaic pins are quite expensive. I'm thinking about making my own. But loveless bolts, you're looking, even buying in bulk, I'm paying $4 or $5 a pair. But in small numbers, you pay $4 per bolt for a loveless bolt. Not cheap. Then the other things you see are things like I say, like the G10 or the fibre liners. Again, I buy full sheets. You buy a single piece to make a single knife, you'll pay $8. I can buy a sheet to make probably 8 sets for $1 or $2 more. So again, it works out cheaper, but it's still a couple of dollars per set of scales on a knife. Then you see the leather of the sheath. I only buy high-grade vegetable tanned, what they call nude hide sheath, and that means it's undyed, so I dye that myself. A lot of guys do actually buy the dyed through leather and things like that, but then you've got that one piece of leather, that one colour, and you set on that. You can't really do anything with it, and I like a bit of playing with it. But again, those hides a hide costs me, and I can only buy it in half a hide, but a hide costs me about $300 to $400 depending on the size. Now that works out around with GST about, I think the last one was about $13, $14 a square foot. Now I've seen that, if you wanted to just make one knife, I've seen that had advertised for something like $30 a square foot if you're just buying that one piece to make one knife sheath. So again, I'm buying in bulk, but I'm virtually a third of the cost, virtually. But there's the leather, then there's the dye, then there's the finishing preparations, then there's the thread. So those are the sort of things you see. Then there's the other things like the glue. Now I've had to have a really good hard look at this, which is one of the 2 reasons that's generated this video. And one is that I'm actually trying to do this part-time now. I'm still not full-time, I'm only part-time, and I'm happy with that at the moment. It's given me a lot more freedom, a little bit more artistic freedom. But because of that, I've had to actually nail down, instead of having a ballpark figure, a knife costs me roughly to make, I've had to really nail this down to sort of like see what my costs are. Now, glue, I use G-Flex, and that's something like $50 a pack. Now, when you break that down to how many knives I get out of that, again, you're looking at probably $3, $4 by the time I've glued a liner onto a scale and then the scales onto the knife. That's $3 or $4 just for the resin. That's gluing everything together. Never mind all the other preparations like I mentioned for the leather. So that's, you know, those sort of things go together. Then you start looking about what we call consumables. They're things that wear out. That's things like belts for the grinding machines, hand sanding sheets, which I've shown before, drill bits, you know, marker pens, engineering dye, cleaning fluids, like acetone, the window cleaner I've shown before, like the blue, which is used in the hand sanding, the oil I use for my hand sanding. I buy that in tubs. But that was something like $40 odd to buy in one go. But compared to buying it in small numbers, makes it a lot cheaper. Again, one of the ways factories and, you know, high producers keep costs down. But all those little bits and pieces, they all wear out. They're all what we call consumables. Same sort of thing with sharpening equipment. Now, on top of that, obviously, anything where you're setting anything up, it's very, very difficult to quantify how much the machinery costs, because obviously you don't buy a machine and make one knife with it, but it's still going to wear and tear. It's going to wear out eventually. There's the extras that need putting on, whether it's new wheels, whether something actually, like if my grinder goes, chances are the big thing is I couldn't replace the wheels. If the motor goes, I could replace the motor. If the controller goes, I can replace the controller. But you've still got to somewhere in that factor in ticking a little bit of money away from every knife that's made. Every knife I make, I have to tickle a bit of that money away, and which is why I've done this, so that I've got some money there which will build up so I can buy more stock, replace machinery. So, you know, you can't quantify that. Now, on an average, a knife takes me about a day to make it. Now, that will probably spread over a week, because anybody who makes knives knows you can do all the grinding and get everything sorted, drill all the holes, you know, but then my heat treat takes a full day. So basically the knife's in the kiln or in the oven for virtually a working day. If you're putting glue on, like gluing the liners to the scales, they've got to be left for 24 hours. You glue the scales to the knife, it's got to be left for 24 hours. You put the die on the sheath, it's got to be left for 2 or 3 hours. You know, same thing with the preparations and the edge coat and all those kind of things. So, you know, it might actually take me, you know, a whole week to make one knife, but the actual hours involved are basically a full day. It takes me a full day to make a knife and sheath together. Now, all that, my current cost for a knife is, depending on what it is, a little neck knife is probably, because there's no handle work or anything like that, it's probably about $150, including the sheath. A full-size knife with handle, with sheath and all the rest of it is about $300. Now, my total costs that I've worked out for making a knife is just over $100. Now, that also includes things like I actually had to sit and work out how much electric the machine's used. So that's, you know, you're looking at the kilowatt per hour that your company charges you for your electrics, and then the power of the actual machine. Is it a horsepower? Is it a half horse? Whatever. How much does that, roughly how much time in a week is that running there for, how much power is that drawing there for, how much does that cost you? Now, by the time I've done that and then maybe posted a knife out, I'm looking at $120. That's just my costs. That leaves me on a full-size knife $180. I then have to put GST or tax away. A little bit, because I don't make that much on purpose. But sorry, taxman, I don't want to pay you. Sorry. Oh, paid you enough over the last 30 odd years. But that's $180. I take maybe $20 away towards my tax, ACC, things like that you have to pay. So that leaves me with $160 for an 8-hour day. That's a $20 an hour I'm on for making a knife. $20 an hour, and that's at $160. Now that's after, like I say, all the costs. And that's on a $300 knife. Now, the second reason for this video is, like I say, when I've been trawling the internet and trying to find out other knife makers out there, knife making companies, trying to, you know, see what's out there, a question is, if you see a knife advertised anywhere, and the cost in this is aimed at New Zealand, so if I'm say UK, just half it, and that's your pounds, roughly. If you see a knife advertised out there, and this knife is advertised as handmade, and they're charging $150 for a handmade knife, and it's not a big company. I don't mean companies like Buck, like Gerber, like Pumas, things like this. You look at those big companies even, they advertise that. You look at the cost of a Puma. That's a massive company with massive buying power. But the biggest cost of their knives is the manpower going into actually producing and finishing something by hand. You look at a company like that with that kind of buying power, and they're still charging $400, $500 plus for a good handmade knife. The smaller ones, often finished on machines, not by, they're finished, held by hand, but not hand sanded and things like that, might be 200 plus. That's why they've sourced out to other areas, which is an aside. But you look at a company that's advertising, and whoever that is, whether it's a one-man operation, whether it's a small business or whatever, and they're saying, we've got a handmade knife, and they're charging $150? I have no idea how it is possible to do that. Well, I do. But it ain't a proper handmade knife. It might be a hand-built knife. It might be a prefabricated knife that somebody's put together. And they'll be using cheap leather for the sheath. It will be stitched on a machine. It won't be finished. But like I say, the point of this video is two things. One is, that was, what I've summed up is the real costs of making a knife. A handmade knife. And like I say, I'm on $20 an hour. How many of you guys watching this will work for work hard for $20 an hour? I'm doing it because it's a passion. It's something I want to get better at, and it's something I love doing. But that's the reality of it, And when you see a knife that's advertised as handmade, I'd have to really question how much of it was made, where it was made, the quality of the materials that have gone into it, the quality of the heat treat and the finishing that's gone into it. So that's that one. That's a bit of a ramble and a bit of a rant. But I hope it was quite interesting and a bit of thought-provoking, a bit of thought out there when you're having a look around at things. At the end of the day, you buy whatever level, whatever it is that you want, that you're happy to pay with, that you like the look of. Don't let anybody tell you what you should and shouldn't do. That's up to you. So with that, I will sign off, and I will catch you on the next one, guys. And try not to have a rant next time. I'll try and do something else. But with that, thank you, world.